Hey everybody, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. I'm your host, Matt Connarton. I just realized it's bright and sunny on the screens behind me. It's like some sort of woo. If you happen to drop some acid before the show, not that I would ever encourage anyone to do that, but you might be enjoying the background. I noticed that just now. So it's a very special edition of Unleashed. Well, actually, it's maybe it's good that we have something a little different. It's a very special week because Donald Trump has announced himself officially as a candidate for the presidency, thus proving me wrong. That's not easy for me to say. I don't like to say I was wrong. I mean, I'm not too stubborn about it. I'm not like, if you ever watched Happy Days, the great sitcom from the 70s, whenever Fonzie would have to acknowledge he was wrong, he would try to say it, and he would say, I was, he couldn't say he was wrong. But I'll say it, I was wrong. I thought he was doing the same thing he does every 4 years, where he just kind of toys with everybody, but he is in. Trump is in. So there are reasons why I'm glad about it, and we'll come back to this later. This isn't necessarily what we're going to open with, but so we'll come back to it. But because there are some reasons why I'm excited that he's running and why I think it's a good thing. And I also have some constructive criticisms for the Donald. Put it that way. We'll come back to that, though. But welcome to the show. By the way, of course, there are two versions of the show for the uninitiated, for those who are new to this. Of course, we have the television edition, which is live at 2 p.m. Eastern every week on IPM Nation. And, of course, you can get it later on demand. We usually get it up by around 9 p.m., in the Eastern time zone, up on IPM Nation for people to watch it at their leisure. Because my understanding is during the day, some people are at school or work or stuff like that. So, I don't know. I mean, come on, really. I mean, you should have your priorities in order. I mean, I'm on the air right now. You should be, whatever. So anyway, and I know more people watch it later anyway, so that's fine. But we are live, so if you're watching live, thank you. And there are also a couple other ways you can hear the show. We also have the radio edition of the show every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern on IPM Nation on the live station. You can listen to it there. We're also on Om Times Radio, and I'm sure we'll be adding more stations in the future. But you can hear the radio version every Tuesday and Thursday night. And it's a new show both nights, by the way. It's not like we do one Tuesday and then we replay it on Thursday. Both nights are live in a brand new show. And in fact, speaking of Trump, by the way, I kind of joked on the radio version of the show last week that, last night, actually, Tuesday night, that it was, that he was like the 73rd Republican to enter the race or something like that. Because there are quite a few. Actually, I think there's 12 that have declared, but there's something like more than 20 total that are expected to declare, because usually when a candidate or a prospective candidate begins the process of, an exploratory committee and all that, it's inevitable. They're going to run. It's rare that you hear someone's thinking about running and they decide not to run. I mean, it happens, but it's rare. Usually, if they're even remotely hinting at running, with the exception of Trump in the past. Trump has hinted at it in the past, and then it turned out he was just stringing us along. But, and then this time he is in fact running. But usually candidates don't do that. Usually they only talk about running if they're going to run. So we're probably going to end up with about, 20 candidates total running if you count everybody. And there was an interesting moment last week on the radio edition where I was talking about a story I found online about Rachel Maddow on MSNBC. They take a lot of shots at Fox. I don't think Fox really bothers to fire back much. I don't think Fox really complains about MSNBC very often. Although maybe they do. And I just don't know because I don't watch Fox very often. And the reason I don't really watch Fox much is I don't like the, that burning sensation you get in your throat if you start to throw up in your mouth a little bit. So So if I am going to watch Fox, I'd have some water handy. But she was complaining. She did a story complaining about Fox in the segment where she was saying, why does Fox get to choose who the candidates are? Because Fox, there's a little bit of controversy around this. Fox is going to be hosting, I think, 3 of the Republican primary debates. And there are other media outlets and so forth that will host others. Because if you remember, for the 2012 campaign cycle, there was like a ton of Republican debates, which I loved, by the way. Some of the greatest television ever was the 2012 Republican primary debates. I loved them. And they did record ratings, by the way, so I'm not the only one. Very entertaining. I mean, with colorful characters like Michelle Bachmann and Herman Cain and Rick Santorum. I mean, how could that not be great TV? So Rachel Maddow, though, was complaining that with the glut of candidates or would-be candidates that appear to be running this time, if you include those declared and undeclared, Fox has had to publicly set some ground rules. Well, they have to be polling above this percentage or this whatever the metrics are. I don't know the details of the metrics, and they've publicly said what those metrics are. And they're drawing some fire and some criticism from people like Rachel Maddow, who says, why do they get to pick who the candidates are, essentially, who are going to be allowed on the debate stage? Everyone should be included. This caused a rather interesting and unusual dynamic last week on the radio show because my co-host Jen Coffey and I were discussing this, and I actually kind of stuck up for Fox, which is incredibly rare. In this instance, I was kind of defending Fox. I was saying, practically and pragmatically, yes, in principle, it would be nice if everyone could be on the stage, but it just doesn't work. Fox has to make choices about who to include and who to leave out. You can't have a debate with, 22 people up there. It's not going to work. And Jen was actually agreeing with Rachel. Agreeing with Rachel Maddow of MSNBC, and because Jen's a Republican. So it was a very unusual dynamic. I'm sitting there defending Fox, and she's agreeing with Rachel Maddow. So it's one of the fun things that you're missing out if you don't listen to the radio edition of Matt Connarton Unleashed. You miss out on this sort of bizarro world. Alternate reality that can actually occur where I'm defending Fox and Jen is agreeing with Rachel. Very, very unusual, but it does happen. So if you only watch the show and don't listen, you're missing out. But we will get back to Trump later. I promise you. But I have to discuss one of my favorite topics, partly because I feel passionately about it and partly because I know it's controversial and it upsets people and makes people angry with me. And I'm not someone who in my day-to-day life enjoys having people angry at me. I'm a nice guy, and I am nice to people, and I like when people are nice to me, and I'd like us all to get along, etc. But in terms of the context of the show, it's kind of fun to upset people. So, gay marriage. It is expected that this month, this is a big, big month in terms of marriage equality, because the Supreme Court is expected to rule this month on a case that will essentially decide, for all intents and purposes, whether gay marriage will be legal or at least recognizable nationally, which I think is fantastic. I'm pro-marriage equality. I always have been. And one of the things that's always troubled me is that, it, on the one hand, it's great and it's wonderful progress that more and more states, even conservative states, what are we up to? I think more than 30 now, maybe? Is it that high? I don't know. I'm terrible at math, so anything with numbers confuses me. But I know that even a lot of conservative states, supposed red states, on a state level have legalized gay marriage. But one of the issues that has yet to be dealt with, but what will be dealt with, or is about to be dealt with by the United States Supreme Court is, what about, this is one of the problems with gay marriage as it stands now, whereas you have these different laws in different states. If someone gets married, for example, a gay couple gets married in a state that recognizes gay marriage and their marriage is legal there, but it's not necessarily legal in another state. This also causes problems with the military in terms of the military not recognizing same-sex couples. So if someone, for example, dies, if a member of the military dies and they happen to have a gay partner, and even if they were in a state that recognizes their marriage as legal, that doesn't mean the federal government doesn't mean the military does. So if there are spousal benefits that would go to the widow or widower of the individual who was killed in action in the military, well, they're SOL if it's a gay marriage. There's all kinds of complications that occur when you have some states recognizing gay marriage and some states not. So this Supreme Court decision, and apparently, even though it is a conservative-leaning court, apparently, from what I've seen, no one really knows how this is going to go, but the feeling is that they're probably, hopefully, going to rule the correct way, what I view as the correct way. But we'll see. If they don't rule what I view as the correct way, then that really sets back, unfortunately, maybe temporarily, but it does kind of set back the movement to give gay people the same rights in terms of marriage equality that heterosexual couples have. So I really, really hope that they rule the correct way on this. So that's happening now. So this is a big, big deal. There are those, of course, we all, some of you watching, I mean, I know in terms of my audience, because I'm not a Republican or a Democrat, I'm an independent. So I know all kinds of people watch this show in terms of, at least I certainly hear from all kinds of people. I mean, I can, the most conservative or the most liberal person, I can find some way to make them upset with me. So I hear from a lot of different kinds of people. But I know that, people who oppose gay marriage, they think that all kinds of terrible things are going to happen if you allow gay people to get married. God, for one thing, is going to be very upset because I guess by somebody's interpretation, the Bible is very specific about this. Or I guess the Bible is very specific about homosexuality in general being a terrible thing. I think there is, after all, some obscure mention of it or a vague reference to it somewhere in the Old Testament. So we then have to take that and hyper-focus on it and interpret that to mean that gay people are bad. And that being gay is a sin and you're going to end up in hell. And if we legalize gay marriage nationally, I'm sure we'll have even more bad weather because God will be angry with us and all this crazy stuff. And, and of course, a lot of conservatives are very worried about the sanctity of marriage being affected, and the institution of marriage will just begin to completely fall apart if we allow gay people to marry, and somehow this is a threat to their marriage. It somehow diminishes their marriage. Maybe some of them, I don't know, actually think that maybe they misunderstand what this really means. They think that if gay marriage becomes legalized nationally, that means that you have to get gay married. Like if you're already married, you'll have to leave your wife to go be with a dude or something. Like one day you're a heterosexual, manly, macho soccer dad, and then gay marriage is legal, and now all of a sudden you're forced to clean a guy's house twice a week and wear a purple thong. I don't know what these people think. It's confounding to me why they are so terrified of this, but they are. Personally, I've always believed that inviting more people to participate in the institution of marriage strengthens the institution, not weakens it. And I think there's a lot of data to back that up. But let's get a sampling of what some of these people think and believe and say about the terrible consequences of gay marriage. This comes from HuffPost. This is written by Amanda Turkle and Jacob Kerr. Civil war and endless trauma. What opponents predict will happen if marriage equality is legalized. This was just posted earlier today. So let me read this article to you quickly. This is fun. I like hearing what crazy people on the wrong side of history think about this stuff. It's infuriating, it's frustrating, but it's at times also hysterically funny. The Supreme Court will issue its decision this month in I'm not sure how to say this, Obergefell versus Hodges, the case that could affirm that same-sex couples around the country have the constitutional right to marry. Same-sex marriage is already legal in 37 states. I was wrong. I underestimated 37 states. That alone just baffles me as to why there are politicians who continue to oppose this. Clearly, if you are opposed to same-sex marriage, you've already lost this battle. Might as well focus on something important, maybe jobs, the economy, stuff like that. Anyway, it's already legal in 37 states and the District of Columbia. But in the remaining states, gay couples are prohibited from marrying, and couples who are legally married in other states are barred from having their unions recognized in these non-marriage equality states. If the Supreme Court affirms that same-sex couples can get married, then same-sex couples will probably start getting married. But many opponents on the far right predict much more serious consequences, ranging from acts of civil disobedience to the collapse of civilization. Geez, I had no idea. Well, I'm not in favor of the collapse of civilization. I'm already starting to rethink this. This whole, giving everybody the same rights and treating everybody with respect regardless of sexual orientation. I mean, if it's going to lead to the collapse of civilization, then I don't know. It's got me thinking. So anyway, let's see. Below are some highlights. Okay. Oh, and it says here, we'll update you on whether these predictions come true, if we're still around to do so. All hell is going to break loose. Former House Majority Leader Tom DeLay, Republican of Texas, says, quote, if this Supreme Court rules against marriage, all hell is going to break loose. In fact, I'm a signatory on a document that basically says you can rule any way you want to, but we're going to stand for marriage, even if it takes civil disobedience, unquote. By the way, what does he mean by civil disobedience in regard to a ruling in favor of gay marriage? How do you civilly disobey that? Do you just, refuse to get gay married? You can do that anyway. Another prediction is the destruction of our country. Alabama Supreme Court Chief Justice Roy Moore said, quote, I think there's an attempt to destroy the institution of marriage, and I think it will literally cause the destruction of our country, or lead to the destruction of our country over the long run, unquote. I am terrified. I seriously hope they're wrong. Another prediction is a disastrous ending. GOP presidential candidate Ben Carson said, quote, I believe God loves homosexuals as much as he loves everyone, but if we can redefine marriages between two men or two women, or any other way based on social pressures as opposed to between a man and a woman, we will continue to redefine it in any way we wish, which is a slippery slope with a disastrous ending, as witnessed in the dramatic fall of the Roman Empire. Oh my goodness. Let's see. Focus on the Family founder James Dobson says, quote, the country can be no stronger than its families. I really believe if what the Supreme Court is about to do is carried through with, and it looks like it will be, then we're going to see a general collapse in the next decade or two. Oh my God. Representative Louis Gohmert, Republican of Texas, whom I personally, just based on many statements, he's a colorful character. I suspect, I can't prove this, I suspect he is inbred. But he said this, and this isn't new. It's been tried over and over, and it's usually tried at the end of a great civilization. So he is predicting the end of our great civilization. Oh my God. Three-time presidential candidate Pat Buchanan said, quote, if the gay rights agenda is imposed, we could have priests and pastors preaching not acceptance, but principled rejection. The culture war in America today may be seen as squabbles in a daycare center compared to what is coming. A new era of civil disobedience may be at hand. I still don't get what this civil disobedience thing is. How do you civilly disobey something that says gay marriage is okay? How do you civilly disobey that? The only way I can think of is to not participate. I don't know. Am I missing something? Another favorite, of course, GOP presidential candidate Rick Santorum says, quote, The family is the bedrock of our society. Unless we protect it with the institution of marriage, our country will fall, unquote. In other words, so he's another one of these people who thinks that the family unit, the nuclear family, if you will, is somehow threatened by allowing gay people to get married. I don't know how. I don't know how family is threatened by that. I've never understood that. Again, you must be someone who's very insecure about your own marriage if you feel so strongly that your own marriage and your own family is so threatened by other people getting gay married. Representative Steve King, Republican of Iowa, says, quote, if this court decides that they're going to change the definition of marriage, that then throws this country into an endless drama, unquote. An endless drama! The country will be thrown into an endless drama. I live in a state where gay marriage is legal, and all I see here is endless drama. Oh my God, it's anarchy, it's crazy. And finally, oh, this guy's name comes up on the show a lot. Good old Todd Legitimate Rape Aiken. Remember him? Former Representative Todd Aiken, Republican of Missouri. Quote, anybody who knows something about the history of the human race knows that there is no civilization which has condoned homosexual marriage widely and openly that has long survived, unquote. There you have it. Just some of the terrible, frightening predictions. It's the end. It's the end of America if we federally, legally legalize and recognize gay marriage. It is frightening. I only hope that they're wrong, and I'm 99.9% sure that they are wrong. That is. So, a little good news at the end of that, because I know by this point, particularly if you're an anti-gay marriage conservative Republican, you're probably absolutely terrified at the moment. But don't worry, I'm pretty sure all those predictions are wrong. I can't prove it. I can't see the future, but I'm pretty sure. Let's see. And then related to that, this is from... thinkprogress.com. 44,500 people, including 2 presidential candidates, vow to defy the Supreme Court on marriage equality. Again, it's more of that civil disobedience thing. How do you defy this? You don't participate, right? It's like how did Rosa Parks, in her act of civil disobedience against segregation, she refused to get in the back of the bus, right? She refused to participate with this idea that as a black person you have to sit in the back of the bus. That is an example of civil disobedience. How do you civilly disobey gay marriage? Again, you don't participate, you don't condone it. What is different than what they already do? I don't understand what they're talking about. But they will defy the Supreme Court. Jay Legum writes this. This is from a couple days ago on thinkprogress.com. By the end of the month, the Supreme Court will decide whether there is a constitutional right to marry for same-sex couples. Most legal pundits predict that a majority of the court will rule in favor of marriage equality, which is great. But a group led by anti-gay pastor Rick Scarborough is vowing to defy any ruling by the Supreme Court that recognizes same-sex marriage. Scarborough announced the effort in a column on WND, a website best known for relentlessly publishing conspiracy theories about Barack Obama's birthplace. In the column, published April 27th, Scarborough asserts, quote, the Supreme Court can no more redefine marriage than it can redefine gravity. Neither is in the court's legitimate jurisdiction, unquote. That is, by the way, an incredibly stupid analogy. The group placed a full-page ad. I mean, seriously, I don't even have to explain that, right? I mean, that's just dumb. The group placed a full-page advertisement in the Washington Post last week stating, quote, we will not honor any decision by the Supreme Court which will force us to violate a clear biblical understanding of marriage as solely the union of one man and one woman, unquote. Good, don't honor it. You're not forced to violate anything. If you don't believe in gay marriage, you're not forced to violate your own belief. Just don't get gay married. if you happen to have a gay friend, not that any of these people do, but if you happen to have a gay friend who invites you to his wedding, you will still have the right, regardless of what the Supreme Court decides, to, with your little homophobic eyes, look him directly in the eye and say, I'm sorry, my gay friend, but maybe you didn't realize this about me, but I'm a homophobe, and regardless of what the Supreme Court says, I don't want to show up at your wedding. Guess what? You still won't have to go. It's okay. You can sit it out. No one is going to force you to do anything. That's what I meant earlier with my joke about, I think some of these people really believe that if gay marriage is legal, they're somehow going to be forced into being gay or something. Like the government's going to show up at your house and say, hey, gay marriage is legal now. Oh, you have a beautiful wife there, but, well, we got someone we think is more suited for you. And by the way, he just happens to have man parts. None of that's going to happen. It's okay. All this panic, it's really not necessary. Of course, if it really is the end of civilization, well, that is something to panic over, certainly. The group claims to have more than 44,500 signatures, which are being collected on defendmarriage.org. According to Scarborough, those who signed the document, quote, will accept any fine and jail time to protect their religious freedom and the freedom of others, unquote. Yes, it's the end of your freedom if you don't agree with gay marriage, but others are allowed to participate. Your freedom is somehow being violated. I have no idea how, but somehow it is. It would be easy to dismiss as a fringe effort, but the list includes two presidential candidates, Rick Santorum and Mike Huckabee. Of course, I'm not surprised by this. Neither appear in the ad, but both are listed on the website. Santorum was the runner-up to Romney in the 2012 Republican primary, winning 11 states. Polls currently have Huckabee in a tie for fifth in the GOP primary, less than 3 points behind leader Jeb Bush. Other prominent signatories include Tom DeLay, the former majority leader of the House of Representatives, and reality TV stars Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar. Good for them. They don't want society to fall off a cliff either, or whatever it is they think. And somewhat related to that, here's a fun article I found, because anyone who's is a regular viewer or listener of the show knows I'm a big separation of church and state guy. I don't define myself as an atheist per se, but I don't want God in my government. And organized religion to me is strictly political anyway. So, you know, I don't think organized religion and spirituality really have much to do with each other, but I don't want to go off on a tangent. But this is kind of a fun article, and none of this is surprising. This is from HuffPost. Nick Wing and Julie Craven wrote this. Some lawmakers are making the separation of church and state seem like a total joke. This went up yesterday. Any decent red-blooded American politician loves the Constitution. It seems fair then to expect these politicians to respect the very first right established by that great document. Quote, this is the Establishment Clause. Quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, unquote. We're going to stop that for a moment because we do have a call. Hi, welcome to Unleashed. Who's on the line?
Hi, is this Matt Connarton, Unleashed?
Yes. Well, that's not
yes.
my name, but that is the name of the show, yes.
Hi, Matt Connarton. I'm not in front of my television, but I know your show is fantastic, and I just wanted to call in and tell you that, and wanted to know what you were discussing today on the air, if you could tell me. And if you can't, that's fine. I understand you're on TV. So.
Right. Well, I've been discussing gay marriage, marriage equality, and so forth.
And how do you stand on gay marriage, Matt?
I love gay marriage. Actually, if I had my way, we would only have gay marriage, but I wouldn't make it retroactive. So if you're already married, you wouldn't have to leave your wife to go be with a dude.
Okay, so you are for gay marriage in all seriousness?
Yes, I am.
And for a serious reason, why? Why are you for it?
I think gay people should have the same rights as everyone else.
All right, that's awesome. That is a good answer. I like that answer.
Well, thank you.
I'm for gay marriage too. I am all for gay marriage. That just means more women for me.
Well, that's true. Because if gay people do that gay reparative therapy, and somehow turn straight, then that would mean less women for you. So you are practical and a pragmatist, and I appreciate that about you, sir.
Yes, and listen, while we're on the topic, what are you wearing right now?
I am wearing it's kind of a faded denim shirt. And below that, I don't know if I'm supposed to reveal this or not, but because it is very warm in the studio, I do the show with no pants.
You're pantsless?
Yeah, technically, yes.
Tool belt?
Always. I'm a handy guy.
Wow, that's really hot, and I appreciate. And listen,
I'm not turning you gay, am I?
I'm actually very glad that you're for gay marriage. That's nice. I figured that you might not be. I thought you'd be one of those guys who was not for it.
No, I'm all for it. I'm all in.
Good. Because I happen to know personally that when it comes to some things, when it comes to like regular straight sex, that you will refuse to do some things with a girl. Am I correct?
Well, yes. Although in theory, and by the way, let's be mindful of the time of day that we're on, because this is not the other show that I do, which is of course Unleashed After Dark. But yes, you are correct. Although I would say that I would hope that there are some things that all of us would not necessarily do with a girl.
Why? What difference does it make what impact on your life does it have if somebody else does something to a girl that you don't do?
Oh, none at all. I'm just saying, I hope everyone has some sort of limit.
Well, of course. I mean, people have a limit. Naturally and sadly, there are people who don't have a limit, but there's a special place for these people. But there are some things that are absolutely harmless, and I am trying to keep this at a PG-13 level.
I appreciate that.
Because you are on during the day. But I think, I have discussed with you in the past certain acts that you simply refuse to do.
Yes.
And I just don't. I do it. I take complete joy in doing these things. And gay marriage. What I'm talking about right now, these people are going to do that on a normal basis. Now, you're for that, is what you're saying.
Yes, I say go to town.
All right, so it's okay for gay people to do this when they're married, but you prefer not to.
I would prefer not to. I know specifically what you are referring to. And yes, that's not really my thing. It's not my bag, as I think the kids are saying today. They say that, right? The young people, that's not my bag.
Yeah.
I think they say that. Yes. I try to keep up on what the lingo is so I can rap with the kids.
Right, gotcha. And you're all for this Caitlyn Jenner thing, I take it?
Absolutely. Whatever makes her happy. I don't have to understand it, but apparently even Rick Santorum, surprisingly, is okay with it. He said if Caitlyn says
what is there not to understand? You just gave some indication that you're telling us that you accept it, but you don't understand it.
Oh, well, I don't understand it in the sense that I don't know what it's like to be a woman trapped in a man's body.
I see.
So it's not something I personally can relate to, but I certainly support her decision to do what makes her happy.
Okay. So so you understand that something like this can definitely happen and make a person could make this decision in their life and definitely go for it. You just don't understand in a human being's mind how they could possibly want to chop something like that off and become a woman.
Correct. To me personally, it sounds horrifying, but I'm not Caitlyn Jenner.
Now, let me ask you this. If you wanted to become a woman, Matt, would you hang on to that, or would you just go all the way like Caitlyn?
Well, I think you have to go all the way to become a woman, don't you? Otherwise, you're just kind of, sort of.
Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, who's to say that? Well, I guess if you were a scientist and or a doctor and you were going by the book, absolutely. But
right.
Caitlyn Jenner and people like her would simply refuse to say that, just because I have apparatus down there does not mean I'm a man anymore. I was born a woman with apparatus of a man.
That's true. And I think that is what she says. But I think she kept it, though, didn't she? Isn't she keeping everything?
Yeah. I mean,
she's keeping the hammer in the tool belt.
There are those out there, and I'm not sure I quite heard Caitlyn at one point say it, but I'm not saying she didn't say it. But yeah. I think there are many transgender people out there who are, as an example, men who will come right out and tell you that they were born as a woman, but they have a penis. You know what I'm saying? They just have a man's body, but they were born a woman.
Right.
So, I mean,
me
personally, I was born a lesbian, but I have male genitalia. So.
Right. Well, it's good for you to be so open with that. I don't know what else to say, but no. But my attitude is, let everybody be happy, let everybody do what they want, and as long as they're not hurting anybody else, whether it's Caitlyn Jenner or gay people wanting to get married or whatever, it doesn't affect me. It doesn't impede on my liberty. I say let everybody be happy.
You're not gay, right?
I am not.
No, because the last time I saw you when we talked, well, almost let that one go. Last time we talked, you weren't gay.
Right. I have not become gay since then.
You haven't turned gay?
I haven't turned gay. I don't think I'm going to, but, hey, if gay people are allowed to get married, because if we eventually reach a point where only gay people can get married and I decide I want to get married, then I guess at that point I'd have to turn gay. But I don't really want to get married or be gay, so I think I'm okay.
Do you think people can turn gay?
No. I believe people are born how they're born. I don't buy into the idea that it's some sort of a choice. Some people say, "Oh, it's a lifestyle choice." I think that's BS. I think you're attracted to whoever you're attracted to, whether you're gay, straight, bi, pan, whatever. I mean, I think
you think you're born with that. You think you're born with that trait or that gene inside of you.
I think so.
Yeah, I do too. Wow, you and I are on the same page, Matt.
Yes.
What's it been? 5 friggin' years that you and I have been on the same page?
Has it been that long?
I don't know. 2000, I don't know. When was it? Maybe less?
maybe 4 years.
I suck at math. Yeah, 4 years maybe?
Yeah. So you want to get in we should get in a plug from Amsterdam while you're on the line. Which, by the way, I never thought I would be saying to you.
Well, I'm going to come down there and crash your show sometime soon.
You should. Actually, I would really love that. You should. You should definitely come down.
We need to. You and I, the last time we were talking about Unleashed a few years back.
Yeah.
I was going to go on your show, and you and I were going to talk about the death penalty, and that never happened.
Oh, you're right. Yes.
Yeah.
I do remember that. No, you should definitely come down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll come down and see you soon.
Okay.
And, it was nice talking to you, Matt. And
you too, Paul.
I'm glad we're connected again. And you go ahead and keep up the good work with that show. And we'll talk again soon, okay?
All right, Paul. Thank you very much for the call.
You got it, man. Have a good one.
All right, you too. Bye-bye. So that was, for those who don't know, that was Paul Cormier. I referenced Amsterdam because he's involved with that show. But people who've been around for a while watching these different shows, or people who are very familiar with, or have been familiar with IPM Nation over the years, might remember that at one time there was this epic feud. Actually, we talked about it with Peter White a couple weeks ago when he was on the show, and you can find the archive of it on IPM Nation because we do archive all the shows there. But we were talking about the epic feud with Amsterdam and Paul's show, Retro Spectrum Radio, which he used to do on IPM Nation, which was a really cool show and whatnot. And they had their big feud, and then Paul and I had a bit of a falling out, which I look back on with regret. I think probably both of us could have handled the situation better, but Paul sounds like he's doing really well. I think he and I probably, as evidenced by that phone call, probably both of us would, get along a lot better now with each other than we did then anyway. Not that we actually, for the most part, Paul and I did get along pretty well, but when we would have a falling out, it was pretty bad. And the last one was pretty bad. And that was the end of our working relationship in terms of his show on IPM Nation and whatnot. But there's a lot of good memories there too. Like I said, if you want to know more, I don't want to spend much time on it, but you can go back, and we did discuss it at length with Peter White when he was on the show, this show, a couple of weeks ago. So, but of course, like I said, Paul does some of the video. I think he created the intro actually that Mansterdam currently uses, and he's on the show on a semi-regular basis, I think. So, Mansterdam, of course, Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. right here. So, I love those guys. So, you know what? I kind of don't know. I'm going to save. I've got to get to Trump because we don't have a lot of time left in the show. So as much as this religious stuff is fun, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to save this stuff about lawmakers not understanding separation of church and state, which happens a lot. I mean, you see in a lot of state legislatures across the country, particularly in red states, frankly, these Christian conservatives who do not believe in separation of church and state. I mean, not only do they not really see it as a priority, they literally don't care about it. They don't believe in it. Some of them, many of them will argue that it's not supposed to be, we are not guaranteed in the founding documents, freedom from religion. It's freedom of religion. In other words, it's to protect religion from the government, not to protect government and the people from religion. That's their point of view generally. So they have no problem mixing God and government. I don't want God in my government. Let's see. Where do we want to go? We're going to have to get to Trump, I think. So Donald Trump announced that he's running for president. And again, like I said at the top of the show, I was wrong. I didn't think he was going to run. I thought he was pulling the same thing he pulled last time. And one of the reasons I thought that was because, we went and we attended, Jen Coffey and I, and for journalistic purposes, not as supporters, although she's much more enthusiastic about him than I am. But we did attend a couple of Trump events and record them and discuss them on the show and whatnot. Got to see his hair up close, like I said. A couple of times I heard him say, I think he said it at each event that I attended. Plus, he spoke at the Leadership Summit, the Republican Leadership Summit, a couple of months ago in Nashua. And he used the line there too. So I've actually seen him speak 3 times now. He would say this thing where he would go, I think some of you are going to be very pleased. I'm not ready to announce anything yet, but I think some of you are going to be very pleased with my decision when I'm ready to announce it. And you would think upon hearing that would be an indication that, okay, he's running. But when I would hear him say that, at least this round, I thought, no, that does not mean he's running. That means the opposite. And I thought that because I remember him using that same line back in 2011 when he was flirting with the idea of running. He would give these speeches where he would say the same thing. He would use that same line. I think some of you are going to be very happy when I announce my decision. Sort of hinting at it, but not doing it. So when I heard that same thing, it was like, okay, this is more of the same. So I really didn't think he was going to run. But he's announced he's all in. Now that he's all in, this kind of stuff is fun. Longtime viewers know I love this. Factcheck.org put up an article. And by the way, websites like factcheck.org or PolitiFact, I love sites like that. And they're nonpartisan, although I know there's a tendency sometimes among conservatives to attack even sites like these as being liberal sites if they fact-check something in a way that a conservative doesn't like. But no, I believe that these are unbiased fact-checking websites. I mean, you go to a site like this and, do a search for Hillary Clinton, you're going to see a lot of fact-checking that is not favorable to Hillary Clinton and does not present her as honest. So I don't think these sites are liberal sites. I think they are nonpartisan, unbiased sites, fact-checking sites. But they, of course, fact-checked Donald Trump's announcement. By the way, before I get to this, I'm glad he's running. I mentioned that at the top of the show. There are things I like about him. Jen is much more enthusiastic about him than I am, but there are things I like about him. As a media personality, I've always found him to be entertaining and engaging and kind of funny. And you know, I've always kind of liked Trump. I mean, I'm not a fan per se, like I don't watch The Apprentice every week or anything, but I've always kind of liked him. And also, I want as many interesting, dynamic, even completely insane people in the race as possible. Because whatever we get at the end of it all, we're not going to be that happy with anyway, so might as well have a good time on the way to getting there. And I'm not saying I think Trump is insane. I don't. I'm just saying, but, you know, historically, we do have crazy people who get in, you know, like Michelle Bachmann ran last time, and she's, I'm pretty sure, nuts. So, and I enjoy that. I enjoy having crazy people in the race. But so let's go through this. Real estate developer Donald Trump's speech announcing he is running for the Republican nomination for president contained a number of false and misleading statements on the economy, trade, healthcare, and terrorism. So let's go through the list. It's not too long. Trump claimed that economic growth has never been below zero until last quarter's drop, which is far from true. It has been below zero 42 times since 1946. I'm actually surprised that he said that. Of course, its growth has been below zero. In other words, negative growth. That's why we have recessions. An economic recession is defined as 2 consecutive quarters of negative economic growth. 2 consecutive quarters of a contracting economy. Of course it happens. It's happened 42 times since 1946. He said the real unemployment rate is anywhere from 18 to 20% and maybe even 21%. We see no factual basis for this opinion. Nobody really knows what the real unemployment rate is. And when people talk about the real unemployment rate, they mean, you know, the official unemployment rate is a measure of new jobless claims. It doesn't take into account people who have fallen off the rolls, you know, people who've given up looking for work, people who are underemployed, people who need full-time jobs, in other words, but can only find part-time jobs, people who had to leave jobs at a certain income level for jobs at a much lower income level, so are underemployed in that regard. I and others have said, you know, we need to stop using the unemployment rate as an economic indicator, I believe, and start using the labor participation rate, which I think would be more commensurate in terms of representing where the economy is. But nobody really knows what the real unemployment rate is. Obviously, it's much higher than the official rate, but to try to put a number on it as though that's fact is very misleading. He boasted he would have blocked new Ford plants in Mexico by threatening to impose a 35% tax on vehicles and parts made in Mexico and shipped to the U.S. But only Congress can impose taxes, and such a tax would violate the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA. Trump claimed to have 5 Taliban leaders exchanged. Trump claimed the 5 Taliban leaders exchanged for Sergeant Bo Bergdahl, quote, are now back on the battlefield and trying to kill us, unquote. I've heard him say this before. But all 5 remain in Qatar, where they continue to be monitored and are subject to a travel ban, according to the State Department. So what he says there, and by the way, I've heard him say that in those other speeches, and my BS meter always redlines when I hear him make that particular statement. That's not a misleading statement. That's an outright bald-faced lie. He also made the misleading claim that healthcare premium costs are going up 29, 39, 49, and even 55%, unquote. He's talking about some proposed rate increases on the individual market that still need regulatory approval. There are also proposed rate decreases or single-digit increases that did not have to be submitted for review. On the economy, Trump, who gave his speech in the lobby of Trump Tower in New York City, becomes the 12th Republican to officially join the race. John Hopwood is calling me. He forgot that I'm live on the air. Or maybe he's trying to call into the show and he's calling the wrong number. I don't know. He's probably calling about this week's Ward 13. Maybe he'd like me to guest host again. I've sort of become his perennial guest host on his program, which I enjoy. The billionaire developer promised strong leadership and savvy economic stewardship, but he went too far in talking down the present state of the economy. On GDP, Trump said, quote, last quarter, it was just announced our gross domestic product, a sign of strength, right? But not for us. It was below zero. Who ever heard of this? It's never below zero, unquote. That is pure nonsense. Actually, the quarterly change in real GDP has been below zero 42 times since 1946, including a drop exactly 1 year before the most recent one. Trump was referring to the 0.7% drop in the annualized rate of real inflation-adjusted GDP growth that Commerce Department statisticians reported on May 29th. The drop came as no surprise, given the record snowfall that paralyzed Boston and much of the Northeast in February, and the near-record snow that covered the Chicago area and much of the Midwest. There had been an even bigger 2.1% drop in the January-March quarter of 2014, also attributed partly to bad weather. And that's been, by the way, generally economists have said, the tough winter in the Northeast affected the economy. Currently, all indications are that growth resumed. Okay, let's skip to the next falsehood. No jobs, Trump said. A lot of people up there can't get jobs. They can't get jobs because there are no jobs, unquote. Actually, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported on June 9th that the number of job openings at the end of April had increased to 5.4 million, the most job openings since the Bureau began tracking them in December 2000. The previous record came in January 2001. The record is 1.1 million higher than the number of job openings recorded in November 2007, the month before the Great Recession of 2007 to 2009 began. And the number of openings has more than doubled, increasing by 3.2 million since hitting the low point in July 2009. On, quote, real unemployment, Trump said, okay, now this was mentioned earlier. Well, this gets into it a little more. Trump said our real unemployment rate is anywhere from 18 to 20%. Don't believe the 5.6. Don't believe it. The real number is anywhere from 18 to 19 and maybe even 21%. We see no factual basis for this claim. Trump is going well beyond the exaggeration that Mitt Romney made during the 2012 campaign that the real unemployment rate was 15%. And back then, the official rate was 8.3% compared with the current rate, which is actually 5.5, not the 5.6 Trump cited. Well, we're running out of time. So I want to get to what he said about immigration. Because when Trump talks about, there's a lot here. We'll get to some of this tomorrow night on the radio edition. But because we only have a few minutes left, I have to get to this. This is what Trump said about illegal immigration. Quote, when do we beat Mexico at the border? They are not our friend, believe me. The U.S. has become a dumping ground for everybody else's problems. When Mexico sends its people, they are not sending their best. They are not sending you. They are sending people that have lots of problems. They are bringing those problems to us. They are bringing drugs and they are bringing crime and they're rapists. Yes, he said this. Sure, I assume some are good people. But I speak to border guards and they tell us what we are getting. They are not sending us the right people. This frustrates me immensely. First of all, Trump has talked about building a wall. He likes to talk about building a wall on the southern border. Gary Johnson, who I voted for, Libertarian candidate in 2012, he's an open borders guy. Some libertarians are for open borders. I am not quite there. I have mixed feelings about that, but I'm getting closer. I know that my conservative friends who watch the show just pooped themselves hearing me say that. But yeah, I mean, I'm becoming more and more open to the idea of open borders. And there's reasons for that, which we don't have time to get to. Trump wants to build a great wall. Gary Johnson says, you build a bigger wall, someone makes a bigger ladder. In other words, it won't work. And as Jen likes to say, too, as she said on the show, walls not only keep people out, but keep people in. But what really drives me nuts is this stuff about, they're bringing drugs and they're bringing crime and they're rapists. This is dog whistle stuff. This kind of talk appeals to the very conservative base who are incredibly xenophobic about undocumented immigrants coming into the country. And xenophobia, really, it's just racism light. When I want to be kind about it, I say xenophobia. Because what this kind of language, what this kind of talk is designed to do, it creates this idea, it creates this narrative in people's minds that they're all bad, that they're all evil, these evil Mexicans coming into the country illegally. They're just here to steal from us and commit crimes and be in gangs and sell drugs and apparently now to rape everybody. Now, that isn't literally what he said, but clearly that's what he's going for. He's appealing to that sort of just under the surface racism that exists in a lot of people. And he's doing it very blatantly. And of course, no Hispanic is going to ever vote for this man after he talks like this. You know, he's not even trying to soft pedal it. Some of them try to soft pedal their xenophobia. He's not even trying. He's being very blatant with it. And then he throws in this line, some I assume are good people. And he probably thinks that gives him some cover in terms of being called a xenophobe. Oh, when he throws that in, oh, I assume some are good people. But he's not even saying, I assume most of them are good people, but we need to deal with those people who aren't. He's not even saying that. He's just sort of affirming and saying, some I assume are good people. Well, when you say some, what do you think when I say, if I say, you know, some of those cupcakes that John Hopwood brought to the studio several weeks ago? What if I said to you that, well, some of them were good? You know, I might imply that I ate a whole bunch of them and only some of them were good and some of them weren't. If I said most of them were good, then, you know, maybe a couple of them tasted funny or something. But when I say some of them were good, it implies that a lot of them weren't. Maybe most of them weren't. Maybe only a few of them were good. You know, this kind of talk is designed to evoke a very specific reaction from people, and it's not a healthy or helpful one. And there is an element, I'm sorry to say it, of racism to it. We are out of time. That's going to do it for the television edition of Matt Connarton Unleashed. Thank you again to Paul Cormier for calling in. I appreciate that. Actually, you can still get access to Paul's show that he did on IPM Nation. I think if you go to ipmnation.com/retrospectrum, I think that's the link, because everything's archived, going all the way back to the beginning of IPM Nation. So his show is still on there, and it was a great show. Maybe we'll talk him into bringing it back. Who knows? Now that we're chatting. So thank you to Paul for calling in. Don't forget Amsterdam, of course, which Paul is a part of, Wednesday nights at 10. And don't forget the radio edition of Unleashed every Tuesday and Thursday night, 11 p.m. Eastern on IPM Nation on the live station. And that's it for now. I got to go. I will talk at y'all a little bit later. Thanks.